Hello friends! Before starting the lessons, it's necessary to know some basic principles. I will talk about them. You might know these basic principles or you might not, but I still want to explain them because following these basic principles will prevent you from encountering problems later on. One of them is the concept of groups and components. Those who use SketchUp always know when you select a wall or a floor and it is a group or component, it allows you to work comfortably and dynamically without any issues when you transfer it to Twinmotion or other render engines. Friends, now there is a situation regarding the concept of groups and components. Normally, before you move on to a meta, the bedroom, friends, where we draw the floor and walls, I want to show it through a small model. For example, we have a model like this. Let's say I use the offset command on this model to make a wall thickness of 20 centimeters or 10 centimeters. Let these be the walls of your bedroom. While drawing for a project, I will also touch on these, but addressing them at the beginning ensures our healthy progress and prevents you from getting stuck in future projects. Friends. For example, I made a wall height of 3 meters upwards, friends. Now, while I'm drawing here, I need to make this a group to prevent other objects I've drawn from sticking to it, or you can double click and make the inside part a group as well. When you enter like this to work and select the entire object, friends, if you say hide, only the ground will remain, and you will have the opportunity to work comfortably with the other objects here. Or from the view section, if you say hide rest of model from component edit, friends, when you double click here or enter this, look, when you enter the ground, since the ground is a group, there is a system like this because we said to hide the other objects outside the group. Look, this way you can very easily move to a working system, friends. Now, when you select this and say make group, friends, look, I've entered this as well. Look, the ground has disappeared. I have created a group within a group. Now, this is actually my first important part. In the second part, friends, when you enter this group object, if there are no different colors on the walls of this group object, you need to color it with the render engine when applying all of it, friends. For example, you came to the coating section. You need to assign any color from the color section here. For instance, let's say I picked a color from here. I'm applying all these colors to the wall. Let this part be behind the TV. I will use a different color behind the TV. What do I need to do this time? I need to apply this. Why am I doing this, friends? Because when doing this, render engines work sensitively to color. When you send these parts, you send them as white, meaning when you send this part as white, the texture you applied here will also come into play in these areas. Because if this part is white, other areas will perceive it as white as well. That's why, for the part you entered, for example, since we will be doing parquet in Twinmotion, I am applying this color here. I'm exiting, as you can see. What happened to my wall colors? If I apply a texture to this color, all colors related to these will have the same texture. I can also apply a different texture to this color. So what have I done? Actually, I have developed a color-sensitive working system. Here, friends. That's why this part is important. In the next section, there are some practical plugins we will use while modeling doors and windows. I will show them in the lesson, but by doing these in advance, we can further increase our efficiency, friends. This was the first part. First, to summarize our group and component work. And secondly, we must make the products we will send colorful, color or texture. But my advice to you is not to use the coatings here, because the coatings here are not very high quality, friends. For example, if you want to use a concrete coating, don't use it, because there is no point in using it, since the render engine has much more detailed options. But you can do something like this. You can randomly apply these to the walls, for instance. If you apply these just to specify color or texture, later when you go to Twinmotion, we can change this coating by clicking here with the eyedropper tool. Friends, it has such a subtlety. Don't dismiss interior spaces, because we need to make these preparations before moving on to the interior, friends. Therefore, since it's an important part, our lesson on important criteria before moving on to the interior is like this.